What's good people, it's JayCactus and we're back with another beat breakdown. And in this video I'm going to show you how I made a Pop Smoke or UK drill type beat. I did make a similar video on my other channel, but since I've started this one up just for tutorials and FL Studio or beat making advice, I wanted to create something new and I think I went a bit harder on this beat, so I'll show you what I did. Alright, so for this beat I actually started with a sample from Splice. It's a violin loop. I wanted something in a minor scale just so it sounded a little bit eerie, so this one's in A minor. So for the sample, I actually pitched it up by 400 cents, which is 4 semitones. So if we're starting on A minor, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now we're on C sharp minor. Alright, so then any counter melody that you want to make, or if you want to tune anything, then you're working in C sharp minor. So I bounced it into a new wave file just so you've got more flexibility with it, and you can just chop it a little bit easier or do whatever you need to do with it. So once I had that, it sounded like this. I think I might have sped it up just a little bit. Alright, so from there, first thing I added just to get a bit of a bounce going is this clap pattern. It's kind of like a typical drill clap pattern. Nothing too crazy. The clap's not too loud either because I wanted to layer it with a snare just to give it that extra oomph. So then once it was layered with the snare, and again, that's just like a typical drill snare. I think the kit that I used was from a K9 kit. And you can see the name up here, it's just called American UK drill snare. The next bit with the hi-hats. The hi-hats is where you can go a bit crazy. And you kind of want that effect where it makes it swoosh. So you'll see what I mean. So I've drawn in some patterns. And then for a couple of the notes, I made the velocity go down like you can see down here. And it sounds like this. So you just want to get a nice little bounce going. And I think on the hi-hats, I added just a little bit of delay. So this is without. And then with, I'll solo it. Just a subtle bit of delay. I turned the volume right down for the input and the feedback, and then just kept it on 2 for the time. And you can just about hear it, it just adds an extra bounce and just fills in a bit more space. The next thing I added, I think I started with a bell in fact. Just a simple bell at the beginning of a few of the bars. Just like that. Alright. And then just to really get the bounce going, I added this kick pattern. Again, this is a kick in the K9 pack. And then the fun part is the 808s. So the 808s is when you can go a bit crazy. For UK drill or Pop Smoke type beats, you've got to have them 808 slides. You hear them in all of the tracks. For the 808 pattern, I actually copied the kick pattern and placed it onto the 808 just to get the same kind of groove going. But the note I wanted to start on was C sharp. And that's because in the sample, the first note in the sample is C sharp. So it's just an easy way to do it. And if you want to check that, I'll show you. So you go into the sample, right click, edit in audio editor, or you could record it into Edison, but this way is a bit faster. And then if you click the regions and then detect pitch regions, it will show you all of the notes. It's not always 100% accurate, so try go with your ear, but this time it did work. So you can see this first note that hits is C sharp. So that's what I wanted my first 808 note to be. And then from there, the slides, it just kind of brought them up an octave on most of the slides. Up another octave there, and then down to some of the other notes. So I'll show you the 808 pattern. Alright, so then I did just one more hi-hat. And again, I just made this hi-hat have that little swoosh effect, so I've dropped the velocity of each note like right down, so it sounds like this. You'll hear a lot of drill beats and Pop Smoke type beats. I always have like a couple different hi-hats in there, but I just went for 2 for this one. The other thing that you can do if you want that other swoosh effect is to actually just try and find a swoosh effect rather than creating one with the hi-hats. So I added one in just to give you a demonstration. And I added that in here. Alright, so the other thing I wanted to add, because I used a loop, I like to create some of my own melodies on top of it. So I first started with a vocal sample from Exhale in Contact, which is just like this. Just something simple, but I wanted it to be like a nice sort of layer underneath. And the preset that I used, Exhale's sick, by the way. If you're ever in doubt, you can just jump to Exhale and find a nice loop in the key that you're working with, and it just makes it sound sick. So once you're in Exhale, you want to go to Loops, select the key that you're working in, and then you can play around with some of the presets. So the one that I used for this was preset number 80, which is Orc Cloud. I think you pronounce it, I'm not sure, but whatever. It sounds hard. So then with the sample in there, everything sounds like this. You can barely hear it, but it just adds a bit of texture. But the only other melody that I added was a piano melody, which I put in. So for this one, for drill beats, you want the piano melody to sound a little bit eerie and just fit right underneath that sample. So all I did was go to Helpers, Scale Highlighting, selected the key that we're working in, which is C sharp minor. So just minor is natural minor. All of the notes here that are highlighted are the ones that you can use to fit that key. So the first thing I did was draw in some chords and added a couple extra notes, and then it sounds like this. And typically when you're working with chords, if you keep the notes close together for some of them, it adds a bit more tension. So then once I had all the elements that I wanted in the track, it was time to arrange everything. And usually for drill type beats or Pop Smoke type beats, there's a lot of variation. So an easy way to get more variety in the track is to remove elements in certain parts for like the verses or the chorus, or to switch up the melody a little bit. And an easy way to do that is just to bring it down an octave or up an octave. So for this, as you'll see here, I've got one melody, which is down a full octave. And then the other one is just normal. And it just makes it a bit more exciting to listen to. I also added some effects just in the start and just before the drop, just to add a bit more energy. The other effects that I added were halftime for the intro, so it sounds like this. And then when it kicks in, I reduce the halftime to 20%. And what that does, if I just play this by itself, you can hear the halftime, but it's just subtly underneath it, so it just adds a bit of extra texture. So it will sound like this. can just hit that halftime subtly in the background. And then even when the melody comes back up an octave, I kept that same halftime effect in there. And then just before the drop, I added a bit of shaper box. And I think it was just a preset, but let me check. So yeah, I actually added this to the master just so that it would affect everything. But I set some automation so that it just comes on before the drop and then it's off for the rest of the track. And this was just one of the presets in the filter section. So that sounds like this. All right, so let me play everything together. So the intro's halftime just with a few effects.
JayCactus.
And then it comes back up an octave. The 808 sound fucking hard. You just want things to come in and out all the time just to surprise people. And then this is for the verse. Then the pianos come in. Alright, so for this section, I just wanted a bit of a breakdown and just to switch it up a little bit before the chorus. And all I did was add gross beat. And this is just a preset in gross beat that I wanted to use just before the chorus. But this is affecting everything because it's on the master channel. So the bass and everything might sound a bit distorted, but I don't know, it sounded kind of sick. But then I had it cut off just before the end, just before the drop, so that the 808 slides would kick back in normally. And I went back to the chorus. And then the vocal chops just come in the second half of the chorus, just to add a bit more variation. Alright, so I'm going to show you how I mixed it. And there wasn't a lot involved, but for the sample, I've already shown you the halftime that I used. And that's just the normal 1-bar preset. And for the EQ, I just took out some of the lows at around 100 Hertz, just to give some space for the 808s. Then I added RC20, just with a little bit of wobble and some distortion, just to make the sample sound a little bit different to how it was. Quite a bit of reverb. I mixed that like 44%, and it kind of helps push the sample like more into the background instead of it being so up front. So I'll show you before and after. Just makes it a little bit more spacey. And then because the reverb added quite a lot of low frequencies, I just cut some of them back out. You can also do that in the plugin, but I just like to make sure by adding an extra EQ. Nothing to the clap apart from panning that just slightly to the right, about 20%. With the snare, this was a bit similar to the hi-hats. I just wanted a bit more bounce with the snare, so I added just a tiny bit of delay, which is set to 2, and then turn the volume right down. Just left it on normal for this one, but you could try a ping pong effect if you wanted it to fly from like the left to the right ear. Hi-hats, I've already shown you the delay, and they would just pan slightly to the left just to balance everything out. The 808, I side chained the kick to the 808. If you don't know how to side chain, I'll probably do a tutorial on that, but there's loads on YouTube, so I won't go into it. But basically all it does is make the 808 duck when the kick hit, just so the kick can cut through the mix a bit easier. Nothing on the contact. And then for the piano, again, just took out some of the lows, boosted some of the mids. The piano was panned quite far to the left, and then the second hat was panned a bit to the right. I just wanted to keep everything balanced a bit. The only other thing I added was some reverb on my tag, and that was the same reverb as the melody, but a little less mixed. And then that's the full beat done. If you're feeling it, then please like the video and subscribe to the channel, because I'm going to be dropping new tutorials every week. If there's any particular content that you want, then let me know and I'll work on that for you. So I'm going to play the full track just so you can hear everything when it's mixed properly. And yeah, stay tuned for the next video.